world ended tomorrow, it would be an absolute tragedy for my son. He has such an exciting, interesting life to look forward to, and for him not to be able to have that life would be absolutely tragic.
Welcome to For Humanity, an AI Risk podcast, episode number 33, Dad versus AGI. I'm John Sherman, your host. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the AI Risk podcast for the general public. No tech background required. This show is solely about the threat of human extinction from artificial intelligence. Please hit like. We need it for the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't, and share these videos. Also, if you can, donate to help spread the word. We have no time to lose. So this week, we're going to get into an area that I think is absolutely critical in getting support for what will be the largest mass movement in human history, the movement to pause AI. And that is activating parents all around the world. Until parents all over the world see AI as the greatest, most urgent, most serious threat, literally, to the lives of their children, we are not going to wake up the world. Parenting is an act of constant sacrifice. Your time, your money, your love, all go to your kids in ways that you would never give to anyone else. Pausing AI will also be an act of great sacrifice. All the unknown good case upside, all the money to be made, all of the ego-driven need to be first will need to be sacrificed for our kids to have any kind of a future at all. It's really that simple. So this week, our guest is Dustin Burnham, a dad and anesthetist, a For Humanity viewer, and a podcaster in his own right. Has a show with a group of dads called the Present Fathers Podcast.
There is a sensationalist bias, right? And when you're constantly exposed to sensational things, murders, stabbings, shootings, people doing bad things, your limbic system will go crazy. You will constantly be in fear. And if you don't cut that out of your intellectual and emotional diet, you will be a very unhappy person.
The link to that show is in our show notes. But before we get to my interview with Dustin, we have two things that I want to discuss. First, this week at the G7 summit, the Pope Francis made a big move on AI risk. Check out this Associated Press article. Headline: Pope Francis becomes first pontiff to address a G7 summit, raising alarm about AI. The article reads, Pope Francis challenged leaders of the world's wealthy democracies to keep human dignity foremost in developing and using artificial intelligence, warning that such powerful technology risks turning human relations themselves into mere algorithms. Then, quoting the Pope himself, he said, "We would condemn humanity to a future without hope if we took away people's ability to make decisions about themselves in their lives by dooming them to depend on the choices of machines." He went on, "We need to ensure and safeguard a space for proper human control over the choices made by artificial intelligence programs. Human dignity itself depends on it." That is some strong, strong stuff. That's a pretty big deal, I think. I am not religious at all, but there are 1.8 billion Catholics on the earth, nearly 18% of the world's population. Getting religious leaders of the world aligned against creating a sand god seems like a huge and vital step to saving humanity from AI doom. Okay, on to the next thing. I want to throw something a little bit wild out there. I have an idea that I want to run by you all. So nearly 10 years ago, I took something I saw on the brilliant This American Life TV show, which stars the incredible Ira Glass, and built off of it. This American Life made a show about an Iraqi soldier who went all over the United States in a simple booth with a sign on it, "Let's talk about the Iraq War." It was an incredible series of shows. So I have been working with an organization that used to be called Baltimore Child Abuse Center for more than a decade. Now it is called the Center for Hope, and I'm on the board. It's here in Baltimore. We did a spinoff of this concept. As you will see, we made a booth, we made some t-shirts, and the results are pretty powerful. So my new idea is to make a booth that says, let's talk about AI risk. I'll be in the booth, bring my video production company with me and shoot it, and tape all the conversations that occur. I think it could be some really different, powerful AI risk video content. So check out this video we call Free Shirts and think about this concept applied to AI risk.
What if protecting children from sexual abuse is more simple than we think? What if something easy, like wearing a t-shirt, could protect a child? The number one form of prevention is starting a dialogue. Our biggest hurdle is making child sexual abuse something that's as comfortable to talk about as other bad things that go on in life, such as cancer and violence and bullying. We're always relying on kids to tell us the bad things that happen to them. So we have to be able to ask them the right questions. Silence is the friend of the bad guy here. They rely upon people being uncomfortable talking about this. We need to be able to get a comfort level with people and with children especially. And when we can talk about it, we just make this harder for the pedophile to succeed. It's a social experiment, trying to insert a really difficult conversation into a comfortable dialogue in an everyday setting.
You guys want a free shirt? I got free shirts.
What's up, free shirts?
Free shirts. We're giving out free shirts. You want one? Hey there.
Hey, are these free?
These are free.
What's the catch?
There's no catch.
Is it free? Or
It is free. Can I interest you in a free shirt?
Yeah.
Excellent.
What do I
You
do? I have to strip for it?
don't have to do anything for it.
to give quarter.
So what's going on with the shirt?
Can I interest you in a shirt, ma'am?
Depends what the shirt is. What do they say?
I mean, it doesn't say like I love ISIS or something.
These are large.
Yeah, I know it could be this.
Thanks. Is it a conversation you can have with somebody?
Yo, what's wrong here?
Uh-huh.
You see how I'm looking behind my mouth?
I know. I saw that. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, I'll pass on that.
Well, that sounds like a good thing to talk about, I guess.
Ooh.
Ew.
Oh.
Well, it's a good cause.
I don't know that I would wear it, but
Do you think you could have the conversation though? Community with kids. Hey, how do we protect kids there?
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
More power to you.
Thanks.
Not my thing.
All right.
It's tough.
That's why it's tough. Exactly. It's a hard conversation.
We're not quite there yet.
I don't want to wear that. I agree with it.
Okay.
I don't want to wear it.
It's so obvious.
I agree. And yet no one talks about it. There's too many kids who are abused and they just keep it quiet.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, hell yeah.
Oh, a little bit difficult when I'm having that conversation with my children at the moment.
Let's talk about child
abuse.
sexual abuse.
What do you think? Is it a conversation that
It's
that you
a
can have?
major conversation.
Yes.
Is it a conversation that people are having?
If they're not having it, they should.
Yes.
Well, I don't think it comes up a whole lot, you know,
Right.
like just in kind of small talk, which is how we spend most of our time.
I think it's hard to bring up. It's easy once you start talking about it.
It's a taboo subject.
It should be a more open, fluid conversation. It should be as taboo to talk about.
You know, I'm a kindergarten teacher, so it's obviously a very important issue.
Is it hard to talk about at school?
You know, there's kind of this stigma that you're supposed to keep the business to yourself, you know. Right. And a lot of the times, especially with young kids, they don't verbalize stuff.
Right. Do they give you the right resources in school so you know what to look for, know what to talk about, know who to call?
Not exactly, to be honest. They told us to be on the watch for it, but
Right.
you know, honestly, who really knows?
It exists and it needs to be talked about so that more people are aware and we need to address it. I grew up and I was very close to some girlfriends of mine, and as we stayed friends for forever, sooner or later talk came out and I was amazed, thought, my gosh, here all these the years, you're so close, or you think you know somebody.
Right.
You know, as children, we clung together, but we didn't understand what our pain that we were carrying.
I think we wanted to see whether people would get out of their comfort zone and start talking about a tough subject like child sexual abuse. I think that, and I think we found no matter where we are in the city, people want to talk and people want to keep kids safe. I think the problem is they don't know how. And I know we have to give them some of those tools. And I think others can have this conversation, whether you've got a booth or not, that you can just start having a conversation about, well, how are you going to keep your kids safe? I'm amazed also that we're able to have conversations with families, with people with children, on a subject that a lot of families would run from, that they're looking for some of those tools and tips. I think it's a lifelong conversation.
So could that work for AI risk? Want to see me out in a booth talking with the public about AI risk? I think it could be really interesting. Let me know in the comments. Okay, on to this week's interview. So the most important role of a dad is to love unconditionally, but it is also to protect and provide for his family. This may be a rather traditional stereotype. I can accept that. But in my 18 years of personal experience as a dad, this is how I have seen my job. If we're going to protect humanity from AI doom, we need to waken a paternal and maternal instinct to protect our kids. Here is my conversation with Dustin Burnham.
There you are. Hey, there we go. All right.
Amazing.
Charm. Very nice. Yeah.
I love it when tech does its thing.
I figured if I'm, sitting for 3 hours, that's not great. So the goal here is to be a little healthier. So the problem is I'm 6'5".
Whoa.
And so my green screen is only like 7 feet tall. So I know it works better when I'm sitting. But anyway, it's a learning process. So thank you for bearing with me.
All good, man. So great to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Really excited to do this. So first of all, I guess, so you are a dad. You are a viewer of this show. So, I mean, I guess just sort of introduce yourself. Give me, how you sort of our paths crossed, and talk a little bit about yourself personally and professionally.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an anesthesiologist assistant and a professor of anesthesia. So I have a master's degree. It is the best cheat code on the planet. I went to school for 2 years to get a master's and make incredible money, have a great job. I get to do everything an anesthesiologist does and just didn't have to go to med school for 10 years. So I love talking about it. I'm always telling people what a great job it is. It's gotten a lot more competitive. Unfortunately, last year, a couple of our recent graduates got on TikTok and started talking about how much money we make and how easy the school is. It's not that easy, but they made it sound like it was. So all of a sudden, we had like 200 applicants to our school in Orlando last year, and we had 6,000 last week. It's completely blown up. So yeah, so it's gotten a lot more competitive, and I feel bad for the kids coming in because, it went from kind of a doofus like me was able to get into, like, you have to be top tier to you have to get into the program now. But
that's amazing. I've always heard that, like, the anesthesiologist is the doctor making the most money in the room, and so I don't know what anesthetism is, but I'm sure it sounds like an excellent profession.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, thank you for asking. I got on Twitter probably 5-6 years ago. I got really into crypto in like 2018, and all the people in crypto were on Twitter. So I was like, okay, I have to go check this out. And I was just a lurker. I didn't really post anything. And then I met some people that were really cool and decided, okay, I'm going to start doing some input. Went from that to AI, tech, venture capital, all these guys. And I would just respond to CEOs of billion-dollar companies, and they would respond back. And I was like, is this real life? Like, I'm talking to Alexis Ohanian and like the founder of, so this is kind of a funny one, Figure Robotics, which is the main competitor to Optimus. Are you familiar with those guys?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Optimus, so sure, yeah.
So Brett Adcock is probably the number 1 or number 2 robotics manufacturer on the planet right now. He started Archer Aviation, which is an electronic version of helicopters. Sold that for a couple $2 billion, seeded Figure Robotics with that, and now they're creating these unbelievable robots. So I took one of his videos and pasted it onto my page and said, hey, Figure is really cool, whatever. He DMs me immediately and said, how did you do that? And I'm dying laughing because this guy's literally building robots and he doesn't know how to use basic Twitter features. So I'm like, I got you. There you go. It was the funniest thing. So, it's just an interesting environment. Like, you go on Facebook and it's like grandmas. You go on Twitter and it's like really interesting people. So that was what really got me excited about it. So I love any kind of bleeding edge technology, AI, robotics, that kind of stuff. I just get really excited about. I love it.
Okay, awesome. So what is your perspective on AI risk, all that kind of stuff?
It's nuanced for sure. So you're familiar with P-Doom, obviously. I would say any kind of P-Doom above about 10% is not acceptable, because I wouldn't go to, I wouldn't play Russian roulette. If you handed me a gun and said, shoot it, and you got a 1 in 6 shot, I'm not going to, I'm not going to take 18% odds. That's not okay. And if that's what we're doing with AI and robotics, it's not good enough. I need to see less than 1. And it's funny, that comes from anesthesia, right? So with our job, if the patient has more than a 1% chance of like dying at any given point, we seriously consider not doing the surgery, right? So
wow, 1%, 1%,
even 1% is too much. Yeah, I would say I've done.
This is routine surgery anywhere in the country. Like if it's a 1% chance,
we cancel.
It's too much.
100%. Because think about it: if your hospital does 10,000 surgeries in a year and 100 people die, or 10 people die, like that's not acceptable. Those are not. So I come from a background where zero risk is the only acceptable amount of risk. And then I look at, Sam Altman, who's like, I don't, humanity's fine, but, if we're replaced by a smarter AI, that's okay. Like, no, that's not okay. I'm team human here, so that's where I come from is I'm very concerned about AI risk. At the same time, I think it has the potential to make our lives potentially better than any technology we've seen in the past. It could lead to an age of abundance we've never seen before. So it's this very weird razor's edge kind of technology that is really exciting and really terrifying, which is why it's fascinating, right? Anything that's terrifying and exciting at the same time, it's hard not to be obsessed with. So that's kind of
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I love that. And then let's put in the third or not another piece of your identity here, which is dad podcaster. Tell me about you and your buddy's show and where it came from and what the thought is.
So there are 4 of us, which is interesting to do a panel like that. It's good and bad. It's tough because in an hour podcast, I'm going to only talk for 10 minutes because we're interviewing a guest. So it's going to be 70% about them. And then that 30% is split among 4 of us. So the questions we ask are on point. We're ready to go. They're awesome because I've been waiting the whole time to ask it. And so that's great. And it takes some pressure off. If for some reason 2 of us aren't able to make it, the other 2 can. So it's pretty cool. George is our primary guy. He's been streaming, podcasting, all that for years. And so he's our tech guy. He taught me how to set up the green screen, do all this craziness. So, thank him for that. But we've been at it over 2 years now. We're almost to 100 episodes. And we're really getting a lot of traction. There's a lot of dads out there that are just really struggling. Our culture is really tough on fathers. I read a fascinating take on Father's Day. I just put it into Gemini. And I said, hey, is Father's Day less important than Mother's Day? And it straight up said, yes, it is. Here's why. So this is interesting, right? 90% less money. This is crazy. Yeah, 90% less money is spent on Father's Day. The number of people who like consider it a major holiday is much lower than, which I get. Like at the end of the day, being a mom, there's a lot more that goes, like it's tough on your body. If something happens, you're usually the one expected to take care. So, I understand that. But to be a 90-10 ratio is not fair. So we're big advocates for dads, and and we want to let people know that we matter too. And and I didn't have a dad growing up, so for me, a lot of this is like a healing process of I struggled a bit with leadership and masculinity and things like that when I was younger because I just had my mom around, and so being there for my son and being able to teach him these things and go through these rites of passage and all that is very healing for me. So that's a big part of why I enjoy it so much.
Amazing. And last part of introduction, just tell me about your kids. What are their ages? And tell me a little bit about your kids.
Yeah. So Lucas is 4. He's at that amazing age where everything is interesting. I'm super exciting.
4 is great. 4 is a great age.
I love it. Yeah. It's a blast. And then my wife is pregnant, so we have a second one on the way. We're having a little girl.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have kids?
I do. I have 18-year-old boy-girl twins, if you can believe it or not. They just graduated from high school like 2 weeks ago.
Way too young to have 18. Were you like 11 when you had kids?
No, I'm in my early 49s of years.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, you'll be 49 for the next decade. That's cool. Yeah, I like
That's right. That's right. I'm going to ride 49 for a long time.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is wild. They just graduated from high school and they're, getting ready to go to college and the whole thing. It's very... So I certainly feel a sense of accomplishment and being on the top of the hill a little bit, but man, when you look back down the hill, it's like endless when you just think of everything that's involved. And obviously there's endless still to come, like it's never over, but it's an amazing journey. It's the most important, most meaningful thing I think any of us ever do.
I agree. And what fun to have twins. That's got to be so cool to have them growing up at the same time. And I'd love to delve more into that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's they're boy and a girl, so like they are different people, and but they're it was fun. Last night they were just like in the yard hanging out with each other, and I was like, are you guys like, that's cool. It's they surprise you all the time still to this day. So like, the first thing, so I got started on this AI risk stuff maybe like a year ago, a little more, year and a couple of months ago. And the first thing I thought of was my kids. Like Eliezer Yudkowsky is talking about no life on Earth. And I've had 49 years of a pretty good life. They're just at the start of it. And when you sit in your sort of father perspective, I think it hits you really differently. So, as you're processing AI risk and thinking about your 4-year-old son, your daughter on the way, how do you process that?
That's a big part of my concern with it, right? I've had 40 years, I've had a great life. If it ended tomorrow, I would be very sad, but I would also feel like I had some fulfillment and that it was great. If the world ended tomorrow, it would be an absolute tragedy for my son. He has such an exciting, interesting life to look forward to. And for him not to be able to have that life would be absolutely tragic. And so if it means that the world is a little bit less exciting and we have to slow down the pace of progress, to ensure safety, then I think that's absolutely worth it. And, I almost think that there need to be some more parents on the AI risk boards, right? I mean, a guy like Sam Altman, his whole life is just about this technology and this programming. And I genuinely don't think he cares about what happens to humanity. I mean, he says he does, but they're platitudes. You can say when he's talking about the future, he's excited. When he talks about safety and humanity, you can hear it in his voice, So, the fact that there was a coup and he was able to kick out the AI risk safety people and, ChatGPT came to market and he didn't tell anyone about it. I don't like that. There's a lot of red flags there. So he's not the guy, in terms of AI safety. I don't know if Elon is either. Elon's a little crazy. I like a lot of things that he says, but at the same time, he's kind of a move fast and break things, kind of guy too. I don't think he's the be all end all arbiter either. I think we need more parents, more older people, more women, people who are a little bit less move fast and break things and a little more, hey, this could end the world. So let's be circumspect about this. And I don't think there's a lot of that in the industry right now. It's not exciting. Once it went from open source to profit driven, for the profit motive is fantastic. It's how you get things done. But there's no profit motive to slow things down, right? Because if you slow things down and now Microsoft is 6 months behind Google, and now Google has a market share advantage, well, you've just lost money and maybe your CEO gets voted out, and nobody really thinks about the really far end of the risk spectrum. I read a great book called Change or Die. I think it was by Deutschman. And the first set of stories was about how when people go to the doctor, they never change their behavior. So if you go to your primary care, you just had a heart attack and he tells you, hey, John, your heart's not in great shape. The good news is if you change your diet and exercise, you might live another 20 years. But if you don't, you'll be lucky to get 5 years, right? You would think most people would say, wow, I've got grandkids. I love my life. I'm going to change my diet and exercise. Nobody does. 99% of people essentially choose to die. And he gets into, these are not crazy people. They're sane. They love their life. They're not depressed. Why is this happening? And it's the power of denial, right? So when something is so terrible that you can't contemplate the possibility of it, we tend to just ignore it and not consider it as a possibility. It's the reason we engage in nuclear brinksmanship. It's the reason we are at war with other nuclear powers. It's fine. We'll just, harass them and all that. And it's like, no, let's not do that. Let's not risk nuclear annihilation. But nobody thinks of that as a possibility because it's so terrible that we ignore it. So whether it's our own personal health where I might die, if you tell me as a doctor you're going to die, it's a very healthy human defense mechanism to ignore that and to not pay attention to it. And that's fine for one person. Yeah, it was a fascinating book. It's called Change or Die. Really changed my perspective on this stuff. The problem is it works at scale as well. So when people make decisions for other people, like I'm going to make this risky AI prototype that could, get loose and cause problems, that won't happen. It's not possible. I'm not even going to consider the possibility of it. So we're seeing that all the time with these new technologies we create that could end the world, right? I mean, I can think of 5 different technologies in the past century that humanity has created that are wonderful, right? Nuclear power is great, but nuclear bombs are not great. So AI, same thing, fantastic. I love the tools. They make editing podcasts so easy. You literally feed it into an AI, it cuts out the ums. It's amazing, right? I mean, that's a simple example, but you could also create, I'm sure you've heard the classic infinite paperclip maker, right? Where somebody decides, okay, we're going to create this AI that's going to make as many paper clips as possible, as efficiently as possible. And so the AI isn't malevolent. It doesn't hate humans. It just doesn't care about us. It just, all it wants to do is make paper clips. And if that means destroying humanity to make more room for paper clips, then that's what you got to do. You got to, if you want to make an omelet, you got to crack some eggs. So we don't want to do that, right? We only get, we don't get any mistakes, one mistake here.
Do you think that Altman and the CEOs are literally in that like old person in the doctor's office who's been told you need to do this and this and this to stay healthy, and they just ignore it and keep going because they're like, that's not going to be me. There's some reasonable percentage chance I'll avoid it. Some part of human nature that just says path of least resistance, take the easy path. Is that literally the mental moment you think these guys are in?
I genuinely believe that's the case. Yeah, I'm convinced. Now, that's not everybody on the OpenAI board. There's plenty of people who are concerned about risk, Ilya Sutskever, guys like that. But Sam Altman itself,
former members of OpenAI.
I know. I wish they were current members. Yeah, exactly. Sam Altman, I don't believe is a bad person, but the Scarlett Johansson incident last month indicates a degree of psychopathy that's potentially not healthy for him to be doing this by himself, right? So he is someone who didn't think about the second order consequences of using a celebrity's voice without her permission, right? You and I could have figured that out pretty quickly. If I copy Scarlett Johansson's voice for a major announcement, she's probably going to sue me, right? That would have been the first thing in my head. We're not the most brilliant men, but we're not, he didn't even think about that. He just was so focused. And tunnel vision is great.
I think it goes worse than that. My understanding of the chronology is like, a year ago, he asks her, "Can we use your voice?" And he like spends 3 days like working her and her agent over to like, "Can we use your voice?" And in the end, she's like, "No, I'm not comfortable with it." So then like a year later, they build it in the program. He calls 2 days before they launch it and is like, "I know you said no a year ago, but how about now?" She's like, "Still no." And then he still fucking launches it.
Yeah. I mean, and so he's one of those classic dumb, smart people, right? Who's absolutely brilliant, right? I mean, nobody else, there's maybe a couple other people in the world who could have created these incredible large language models. He is an absolute genius, but he's a dumb genius, right? And that's the kind of dangerous person who could be the kind of person to create a very problematic, dangerous new life form, essentially.
Yeah.
And so that is a very serious, concern for me there. So to answer your question, I absolutely think that he could be that kind of person who's in denial, like most of us are. You and me, if we went to a doctor and we didn't have a support system and he just told us, you just had a heart attack, you absolutely have to change your diet and exercise regimen. You can't eat any of the foods you like, and you hate exercise. You just like to sit around and watch TV, but now you have to start moving and exercising. We would not do that, right? Unless we had a really strong reason to do it. And so I think he's in the same boat. Yeah.
We're almost even, I mean, if you put a harsh mirror up to us, right? Or if I did it to myself, it'd be sort of like, if I believe what I believe, which is that the current path we're on is going to end all life on Earth in like 2 to 10 years, I shouldn't go to the baseball game tomorrow with my son for Father's Day. I should be working on AI stuff. I shouldn't be doing anything other than pressing as hard as possible on AI risk stuff to some degree, right? I mean,
yeah, no, I get it. I think, if you knew that you had some small chance of averting disaster like that by putting that extra time in and grinding, then I completely understand where you're coming from. That being said, it's Father's Day. Don't miss your son's game. But
right. No, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I agree. That level of putting blinders on and really focusing and obsessing, is a beautiful thing, right? I mean, work-life balance can be good for the right type of environment. But if you're a builder and you're really trying to create something, it doesn't make sense to try to have work-life balance because it's just not going to happen, you know?
Right. So, all right. So I have a good understanding, I feel like, of your perspective on AI risk. How do you treat what you know in the world around you, like with your wife and your podcast co-hosts, your friends? Do you make the case for AI risk? Are they receptive? How do you deal with what you know?
It's not on the radar, unfortunately, for most people. There's a little bit of, that kind of, everyone's seen the Terminator, so and especially as we start to personify robots, as we get smart robots. So as I mentioned, Brett Adcock, CEO of Figure Robotics, has actually partnered with OpenAI. So the robots are being trained on large language models from OpenAI. And so, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? Yeah, exactly. Now, Brett has 3 kids. He's a family man. He's a very nuanced thinker. And, I disagree with some of, because I've asked him before, like, are you worried about death robots taking over, right? I mean, your robots look like they could become a Terminator in 10 years. No, that's not going to happen. I'm not worried about it. It's not possible because of this and that. Anytime I hear that's not possible, this couldn't happen, you have nothing to worry about, alarm bells go off in my head immediately, right? Because something can happen. There's always risk. We say that in medicine. It's very illegal for me to tell a patient, if they ask, I'm going to be fine, right? Nothing's going to go wrong. I'm not allowed to say nothing could possibly go wrong. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I have to say, ma'am, it is possible something could go wrong. I have to admit that. We're going to do everything we can to take the best care of you possible.
Yeah.
But yes, there is risk involved. It's informed consent, right? So if I have to give 80-year-old Nana for informed consent, I feel like humanity, 7 billion people, deserve some informed consent when it comes to these devices being created. And there's no concept of that. There's no, you just build what you want. Don't worry about it.
That may be the most offensive thing about this whole fucking thing. Like literally the lack of consent, the lack of asking consent, the lack of like a conceptual framework around the need for consent is just stunning. Who authorized these people to make decisions for our kids?
Right. Yeah. And, that being said, a committee is not going to work here. If 1,000 people all were making decisions on this stuff, nothing would get done, and then we're not advancing humanity and we're not taking advantage of this stuff. So, and there's always the argument, okay, if the West shuts everything down and says, okay, we're going to be as safe as possible, and not any of this stuff, China's going to do it. Right. So, it's an arms race. And so whether it's corporate competition, whether it's Google against OpenAI, or if it's China against America, either way, that competitive drive is going to push this forward. So we can talk all we want about what should happen, but at the end of the day, we need to be talking about what is going to happen in reality. And that's a tougher situation.
Yeah. I want to go back just a little bit. So you said that your friends, your co-hosts, your wife are sort of unaware of the situation. Do you make the case? Like, with your co-hosts, when you guys are just shooting the shit, are you pushing for this stuff, or are you just, and I'm not saying that I'm always pushing with everybody all the time either. I'm not saying you should be. I think it's like case by case, and you can't push it where, you can't push against a brick wall. It needs to be the right moment, the right person, the right time, the whole thing. But how has your experience been trotting out this case to those who are unaware?
So my co-hosts are big tech guys. They love bleeding edge tech as well, and they're a lot of fun to talk to. We've had, Farzad Mizbahi.
I think I watched that show. Yeah, I've sort of blasted through a bunch of your shows and sort of watched what I thought was right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
I'll subscribe and check them all out.
Yeah, nice. So he's a futurist. He's the kind of guy that's perfect to talk to, right? We talked about Optimus a lot. We talked about what Tesla's doing. So that was a really unique opportunity. He just had a baby 2 weeks ago. He just had his first kid. And so he's kind of dealing with all these challenges now as well, right? A year ago, he would have said, whatever, I'm just going to have some fun. It really is amazing when you have children, that different perspective it gives you, where you start looking at the future and saying, wow, if there's a chance this could harm my kids, I need to be a little more careful here. And so that was a really nice opportunity to talk with him about AI safety and risk. And so his big take is the robots are coming, right? So that's not good or bad. It's just that's happening, right? So whether we want to or not, these smart robots will be here in the next 5 years. And robots could be self-driving cars. They could be Rosie from the Jetsons, essentially. I honestly, I would not be surprised if in 10 years, many of us have a Rosie type of situation who does our laundry.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. I hate doing laundry. I'm all about that.
Sure.
That's a
right.
win.
Imagine going to bed with your dishes in the sink and laundry everywhere and waking up with it totally done. Amazing.
Incredible.
What a world that would be.
Yeah. So that,
especially for dads, because dads and moms have to do so much of that shit. Like it's literally like constantly cleaning shit. So like that would make parenting.
It's nonstop.
So much better.
And so to get back to Brett Adcock, the reason he founded Figure Robotics is because his mother was not taken care of well in a nursing home, because there weren't enough people to physically lift everyone and all that. And so his goal with Figure is to literally create robots that are able to lift nursing home patients and wash their butts and do these things that are not pleasant activities.
Wow.
That's amazing, right? And so maybe my mom gets 10 better years, because of this robotics. So again, there's so many wonderful potential things that'll happen with it. But then, if I have access to Rosie the cleaner, I know the Department of Justice, has access to like the Terminator. And so is it worth that risk of having these cool things if it means that we run into these issues? So we talked about that a lot with Farzad. The AI acceleration curve, we all think linearly. We all think, okay, in the 1950s, we had TVs. In the 1960s, we had this. In the 90s, we had cell phones. And so, it's kind of, we're just seeing a new thing every 10 years, right? It's not going to be like that with this. We're going to see a new thing every year and then every 6 months. And then all of a sudden, there's a new breakthrough every day. And most of it is going to be good. We're going to figure out cancer. We're going to, be helping out grandmothers with this kind of stuff. But every time we go up that power curve, we increase the risk curve significantly. Are you familiar with Tim Urban? Wait But Why? I'll send you the link to an essay he wrote in 2009, I think, or it was a while ago that he wrote it. No, I'm sorry, 2019. It was about 5 years old. And it really nicely breaks down how exponential growth works with respect to AI risk. Absolutely brilliant. And he's really big on, he does these images that he puts together and kind of breaks it all down and all that. He's where I learned about the infinite paperclip, concept. And the likelihood of evil Terminators coming to try to kill us is almost zero, right? It's very unlikely that we create an evil AI.
No, it's not going to be evil, right? Yeah.
It will be ambivalent. It just won't care about us. Just like when I squash an ant, I'm not being evil to him. He's just, he's in my way. I'm just going to step on him. No big deal. And the potential of a super intelligence doing that to us is very high, right? Because we may just not matter to it. So yeah, my thought process, and again, let's go back to the utilitarian perspective versus just what should happen, right? Because what should happen is we should take it slowly and be safe. I don't think that's going to happen. The people who are in charge of this stuff are not the be safe and go slow kind of people. So my hope is that we look at different tools that people aren't looking at. One would be empathy. I think it's possible to imbue affect or the basics of emotion and empathy in some form into silicon, right? I know we think of that as uniquely human, but I think it is possible that we create
what
AIs.
Makes you believe that that's possible? And I'm not saying that I don't think it is, but I think that is one of the greatest technical challenges in all this.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, data with this emotion chip, right? From is the construct we've seen, right? Years ago, I remember growing up and thinking that's not possible. I could see data solving math equations, but the idea of him crying and loving his coworker, there's no way, And so it seems very weird.
Data from Star Trek Next Generation, for those who are wondering.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
Brent Spiner.
That's right there.
My man. Yeah. One of the greatest actors of all time. I mean, just that role, I love it. The Borg, all that stuff. I mean, that's the thing. As a kid, I've been obsessed with AI, because it's so interesting. The idea that there could be human-like creatures that we create, right? That are like, so in any case, affect is the basic building blocks of emotion. There's 9 basic affects: fear, disgust, interest, excitement, enjoyment. There's good and bad ones. And so if you look at the human brain like a computer, in some sense, every thought we have starts with affect and emotion, right? So we think, oh, I'm coldly logical about this. Well, you're not. You're actually enjoying the process of being logical, right? You think, oh, I'm being logical. You're enjoying that, right? And so that's an affect, which is not a bad thing, but just understand that nobody is coldly logical. As guys, we're guilty of this. Oh, I'm logical and my wife is illogical. That's not, you're just as illogical as she is, if not more.
A calculator is logical. You're not logical.
Great example. Yep, exactly. And so it's possible that we can imbue in large language models a love of humanity. a desire to help us, a desire to not harm us, right? So you could go back to Asimov.
I really hope that's true. Honestly, my understanding from like just my last year of researching it is that it's very much an open question, and that it's a pretty optimistic to say that it is possible to do this, and a lot of technical experts believe it's not. However, continue.
Yeah, please. So that is a very valid argument, and I would say that what my good friend Dr. Scott is talking about is not mainstream. I think most people, 80% of people would say, no, it's a computer. It doesn't have the ability to have empathy or love, or those are uniquely human traits. I think that it would not be like human love. I think we are unique in our ability to love each other. There's no other animal on Earth. There's no other anything anywhere in the universe, I think, that is possible of love and empathy on the same level that humans are, which is part of the reason I'm Team Human and I love us. We're awesome. Human consciousness is very unique. What we're able to do is very special, and whether you're religious or not, humanity is worth fighting for and worth saving. And
absolutely.
I debated a British anti-natalist a couple months ago. If you're familiar with that philosophy, it's an interesting one. It's growing very quickly. So natalism is the belief that having children is an inherently good thing. Anti-natalism is the belief that no one should have children. So it's not, I don't want to have my own kids because don't want to. Yeah. So it's great. If go to r/antinatalism on Reddit. There's millions of subscribers. It's a combination of environmentalism. People hurt the earth, so we're bad. It's the main argument is the consent argument. So when I had my son, I didn't ask him if he wanted to be born, right? I couldn't. And so their argument is that it's inherently unethical to have children because they can't consent to be born. And when they're born, they're going to suffer. And so suffering is bad, ergo, vis-a-vis, whatever what the Latin is for it, it's evil to have children. And so it was an interesting conversation. I said,
just real quick, and just the first thought that comes to my mind is like, if suffering is bad and you want to end suffering, why wouldn't they all kill themselves then? Like,
what classic argument? Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so I asked him the same thing, what's the story with that? And he said, once you're born, you have to do the best you can with it. So I'm not going to kill myself. My goal, it gives me meaning to try to get people to stop having children so that they will stop suffering.
But then why would you remove that choice from someone else? You're allowed to have that choice, but the next unborn,
there are so many holes and ridiculousness about this. It's very easy to poke apart, I felt like.
All right, but please get a yank.
Yeah, but so it's a silly, I would say, just like the Shakers, the Quakers in the 1850s, right? It was a Christian sect in Pennsylvania. You were not allowed to have children. I'm not sure what the justification for it is. Died out after 20, 30 years because, there were no adherents to follow it on. Right. What's interesting, though, is that these anti-natalist ideas are increasingly popular among very powerful people in the programming community, especially. And
totally see that.
If a couple nutballs in, some faraway place have these weird ideas, more power to you. It's an interesting thought experiment. Go for it. But what's scary about it is that Team humanity is the best, and we should try to protect us. We're special. All that kind of stuff is not the 100% automatic thought process behind a lot of people. And they're on record with this stuff. You've seen it, right? Where humans are fine, but, we need to level up. It's time to move on to the next species, essentially. Is a relatively common feeling among a lot of people working in AI. And that sucks. I don't like that at all.
Totally. And totally. And you could, it's almost in parallel, right? It's like, I don't want to have a kid because I don't want to have to care about the future like that. I don't want to oppose AI because I don't want to have to care about the future like that. It's like this, I'll just worry about me right here now today and fuck the future, whether it's a kid or someone else's kid.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that going on. It's, what is it? CEOs and surgeons are the highest in the world in terms of psychopath tendencies, which again, psychopath has a negative connotation towards it, but there are certain psychopathic tendencies among CEOs that are a good thing, right? Your willingness to fire employees who aren't doing a good job, things like that. I wouldn't be able to do it. If I had 1,000-person company, you told me you have to fire 500 of these people tomorrow, I couldn't do. I would literally be like, no, they have kids. Like, I can't fire them, right? I'd be a terrible CEO.
Yeah.
So because I'm low on psychopathy. For some of these people, it's a good thing in certain senses that they have these high levels of psychopathy, but it's very concerning because it leads them to the type of programming they're doing and the type of decision making they're making in terms of moving fast, breaking things, and doing whatever it takes to advance artificial intelligence, even if that means that the risk of, human doom is increasing, as we go.
Yeah.
So
I did have one little note that came to mind there, and it is about hiring and firing of people. So I have to hire and fire people. My sister has had jobs where she's had to fire a lot of people. And when I first became a boss and had to hire and fire people, I called her up and was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to have to do this, but I really like this person. They have a family, whatever. And she gave me the best piece of advice anybody ever gave me in this area. She said, the next person has a family too.
Oh, I like that.
I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So it's, but that's just a little something that fell out of my head.
I like, that's a great quote. Yeah, absolutely. Because, and also if they're talented and they're, it'll be a slight setback initially, but they're working for a great company. Their resume is awesome. And it's your job to make sure that they get sent off with a great letter of recommendation, and maybe they'll succeed more at the next. You might've been holding them back, by keeping them there. So
yeah, that's a good, totally.
Yeah. I like
totally. So what do you think you can do about this? What, like I'm sitting here in this chair every Saturday, just trying to like run around the neighborhood, banging pots and pans and being like, wake up.
Yeah.
What do you think is happening that's working? What do you think our chances of pulling this off are?
I think social media is incredibly powerful, and there is a certain meritocracy there. So by having these conversations, by ensuring that the right people who need to be hearing this kind of stuff are hearing it, I think there's a better opportunity to make sure that the right ideas are brought to the right people. So if we can't do it by directly talking to, CEOs and people in power and on boards who are in charge of this kind of stuff, then we do it by talking to our local representative and congressman, by saying, hey, this is an important thing and we need to have this conversation. And I know Microsoft just gave you $6 million to help you get reelected, but I'm voting for you. I need you to listen to me, kind of thing. So who hears and sees the videos and the posts that you make on social media is not always who you would think, right? Likes have just been made private on Twitter. So you don't know, who's liking, who's reading your stuff. I've gotten really interesting direct messages, 6 months later, where someone said, hey, I read your essay you wrote. I thought it was really interesting. I wanted to give you some feedback. I looked back, they never liked it. They never commented on it. I would have no idea who was reading and looking at your stuff. So it doesn't matter who you are, you have a voice and you have the ability to add to this conversation. It might be a 10th order, butterfly wing, kind of thing, right? I talk to you and you talk to somebody else and they talk to somebody else and they have a public reply on a Twitter thread. And then, somebody reads that and they decide that they need to make some policy changes based on that. So do we have any direct control over this stuff? We really don't. We're not in a position of power to make that happen. And that's okay. My big thing is in life in general, I don't think I can change the world. I genuinely don't believe that I, as one man, can, move mountains. Some people can. I think Elon Musk can move mountains. I think, Macron can move mountains, people like that. But I'm okay with that. That's too much pressure and stress for me. I'm more than happy to know that I can impact my little microcosm, right? I know that I can make the city of Melbourne that I live in Florida a better place. I can make my son's life better. I can help my patients. And I'm pretty convinced that if I do things right in my 100-year lifespan, I might improve the life of over 1 million people. I can individually look at situations where I'm powerful enough to have that impact. And then those people can then impact other people. And that's enough for me. I don't feel the need, I don't need to directly make the decision that changes the world, but knowing that my little bit of interference changed things and made things better for other people, that's enough. And I think that should be enough for everybody. If everyone tried to do that, the world would be a much better place.
I like that. I hear that. It resonates with me. And yet I feel like a little bit of a pushback coming in from inside me that is like,
that's what podcasts are about. Please fight me. Yeah.
Right. No. Like with an unprecedented threat, right? Like with the end of all life on Earth for the first time being in the realm of possibilities for humans, like literally.
Well, I mean, nuclear Armageddon almost happened in the 60s. So it's definitely not the first time.
Yeah, well, yes, but even in a full out nuclear war, they think that 1% of human population survives and has a chance of restarting.
Bunkers, right? Yeah, good point.
Right. This is, famine, all this stuff. So like, but there would be some humans that would have some chance at restarting. With AI doom, we're talking a zero human future.
Right.
For the first time that is possible in the history of the world. And so, it might sound ridiculous, but sitting here in this little chair in Baltimore on a Saturday, I do think I can change the world. And I'm going to try, because I feel like if it's not me, it'll be someone else who's, of the same sort of mindset trying, because I just feel like the nature of this threat is entirely unprecedented in human history.
Sure. So we talked a little bit about empathy and teaching large language models to love humanity, essentially, right? I don't think that Asimov's 3 laws of robotics are don't harm humans, don't allow humans to get, right? There's like the 3 laws. They're so easy to get around, right? A super intelligent AI could easily look at that and you lawyer its way out of it and then just kill everybody.
Absolutely.
Would not be that hard.
Yeah.
So you've got that option. The centaur option is kind of interesting as well. You familiar with the human centaur concept?
A centaur is like a half horse, half man.
Correct. And so in terms of robotics and AI, it is the concept of humans and on some level merging with machines or working with AI. So the first human centaur in history was Deep Blue, right? So when the chess champion in 2020 or 2015, whenever it happened, that was not a computer that beat humans, right? It was a computer working with humans that was at the time the smartest chess champion in the world. And so I believe that human intelligence, our pattern recognition, our unique empathy, things like that, our ability to work together makes humans working with AI more powerful than just AI alone. And so one other possibility—
how long? Is that, you really think that holds over time?
It certainly can. Now, so the idea here is, if we as humans become smarter and we learn to use these tools to their maximum effectiveness, we are always able to stay one step ahead of AI by itself, right? So yeah, please, I'm seeing a lot of to push back on that, please. I'd love to
I'm struck by in Mo Gaudat's book, Scary Smart, he talks about an experiment they did. I think it was at Google with 2 computers, and they had them start. They were named Alice and Bob. Do you know this story? And they so they turned them on, and they're going to start talking to each other. And within like 6 minutes, they've created their own language, where by using human language, they're repeating human words at rapid speed in different like combinations. And they are now talking to each other in a language that the humans in the room can't understand at all. Within 6 minutes, they created their own unique, and they're just talking, and they shut the machines down because they were doing things. This was within Google. In Mo Gaudat's book, Scary Smart, he talks about it.
Yeah.
And so it's just the idea that, like, very quickly they will become smarter than we are. They would have powers of deception and super persuasion. And this idea that, like, they're going to have a use for us, or that we can control them once they're way, way smarter than we are, it seems pretty hopeful. It seems pretty thin optimism to me. Like, my optimism meter is very low on we make something 1,000 times smarter than us. And in any way we can, we couldn't even understand it, much less control it.
And there's that classic power of denial and, we've never seen a super smart computer that's smarter than humans, so it's not possible, right? They can't create music. Yeah, they can. They can't beat us at chess. They can't beat us at Go. And then, everything that they can't possibly do, every year we see that benchmark. So I understand. So what is if you were to put a P-doom right now, if we stay in the same direction we're going, if we just let Sam Altman do whatever he wants, if, we compete with China and say, I'm more worried about making sure we have the strongest AI possible versus, doing the safe thing, what do you think our P-doom is in 50 years?
In 50 years, 98%.
That's
99%. Yeah.
It's very concerning.
Yeah. I mean, and 50 years is a really long time. If you said 20 years, I would say maybe 75% doom, 25% hope. But I think at 50 years, it gets really, really hard to imagine how we stay in control. Someone, I forget what it was, but someone was like, yeah, we're like 2 squirrels talking about like what humans could do to us. Like,
yeah,
we have no fucking idea what humans could do to us. We know that, like, we're alive one minute, we're dead the next minute. Maybe we saw a shoe coming at us or something, whatever. We have no idea the 20 million things that humans could do to squirrels.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And the speed of general intelligence to super intelligence could be months or years, or it could be weeks.
Right.
And once you hit super intelligence, the toothpaste is out of the tube. We're kind of toast at that point. So
yeah. So what is your P doom once we hit an ASI?
If we go on the current path that we're going, we don't make any changes. We just do everything we can to recklessly put every dollar we have into making more chips and getting smarter and smarter. It's not much lower than yours. It's almost guaranteed that we will not do well in that situation. There's a possible angel kind of situation where we don't understand. And for some reason, if we create a super intelligence, it is benevolent and it would want good things for humanity. That's really our only chance at that point, because we couldn't beat it in a head-to-head fight. This is not the Klingons against the Romulans, right? I think we see too many science fiction stories with parody, right? Like the likelihood that the Romulans and the Klingons would have the exact same laser technology, having grown up in, worlds trillions of years apart, is almost zero, right? It's a silly concept. Like, as cool as Star Trek is, that's silly, right? There's no it would be the Romulans just completely taking over and destroying the Klingons because they're 100 years ahead,
Right. And to this idea of like, would it have empathy? Would it have these sort of these human, traits? I think that humans are the only species in the entire galaxy that have our goals and ethics. Like, it's impossible to believe that there's another planet somewhere where things happen just parallel with us, so that they absolutely have a mirror copy of our goals and values, whatever those are, as a species. It seems absolutely impossible. So the idea that we're going to create this alien, right? Because it is not a human, it is an alien. Do you agree with that? That like,
yes and no.
AGI,
so a true alien, we didn't have any hand in creating, right? Whereas an AGI was created by humans, and so the ideas and the concepts we've imbued in it are human ideas and concepts. So it is an alien, but it's not the same kind of alien as one born on Mars, let's say.
I'm going to push back there. So like,
please,
first of all, like we're all made of carbon, right? So everything in the universe, the aliens, I assume, would probably have some carbon in them. Maybe they wouldn't, but we'd have some commonality with anything that came from the universe in some way. And that sharing carbon with an alien might be a greater link than an AGI would have to humanity, being that it is, grown from human text, but formed into something entirely unhuman. Like, it has never been embodied. It has never had a fear of death. It has never, had emotions. It has never experienced any of the things that are essential to being human. Even if you just look at the fear of death, right? Like, how much of humanity is based around fear of death? A whole lot of it. How would humans who could never die be different than us? They'd be entirely different. How would you proceed differently in your course of your day if you knew you could never die?
We've all seen Interview with a Vampire, right? I mean, we would act probably like vampires in that sense. So I think I know exactly how humans would behave. Yeah, it'd be very different. Yeah. So I hear that. But again, because we are creating this new alien, I think we do have the opportunity. I don't think it's hopeless. I think we do have the opportunity to put safety guardrails on, to potentially make ourselves on parity or as smart, to at least keep that at bay, for a decade, maybe 2 decades. It may not last forever. By teaching it empathy and love and giving it a deep respect and profound desire to help humanity. I can think of 10 or 15 different ways that we can mitigate or potentially reduce the risk of AGI destroying humanity. So I certainly don't think it's hopeless, but on our current trajectory,
no, I don't think it's
trajectory.
hopeless.
We're in a lot of trouble for sure. So So what are your what's your go-to? Okay, so we probably hit AGI in the next 10 years. We probably hit ASI in the next 20 years, whatever it is, almost guaranteed, right, in the current trajectory. So
absolutely.
Slow it down. Number one, right? You take a little pause, like a lot of people have talked to. What's your next step to get those guardrails in and make sure that we have a chance of surviving this thing?
So, if I'm president, there's 2 things I do today. One is you put a hard compute cap on frontier AI development, right?
Okay.
And you know, I'm not a math guy, but I'm told it's something like 10 to the 26th or whatever, you know, whatever the hell that thing is. There's a mathematical limit to the current training runs that have been done on the high end models, and if you would stop and not go past what the last training one was, you would dramatically reduce the odds of us all dying. And then the second one would be I would put some sort of device on the chips that would report their location back every minute. And these are both like Eliezer Yudkowsky things, so that you know where all the chips are, and you know that if there is an unauthorized clustering of chips, the next step is you literally send fighter jets, even if it's in a nuclear country. This is what Eliezer Yudkowsky says. You roll out the jets, and I don't care if it's in England, you blow it up.
Yeah. And so how do you get international cooperation on that? How do you get that to not just be Germany and France and America? How do you get India and China to agree to that as well?
So I think the China case is a little overblown. And I think that there's some pretty strong evidence that China is almost more ready for significant AI regulation than the US is. So they currently have stronger AI safety regulations than any of the Western countries do by a lot. Their government, the CCP, also has a far greater interest in maintaining control of all things in their society than we do. You know, like the CCP does not want somebody in their garage to be able to make a nuclear weapon or a bioweapon or some sort of information tool that can erode their ability to control the hold of information on the society. So, this idea that the Chinese don't know this conversation we're having, and they don't have scientists there saying, hey, boss, this thing could kill us all. Like, that's got to be happening, right? That's like this. That's the science of it. So those voices are over there.
More of them as there are. So
right, there's 5 times as many more of them as are. And honestly, like, they have control. Like, if here we said, everybody, you have to do this, we're assholes. Everybody go do their own thing, right? In COVID, like we're horrible. But like, if they said to in China, like, this is what we're doing with this, probably most people would do it. So
did it. Yeah,
right. Like, I think this like us in the U.S. being like, we must continue off the suicide cliff, because if we don't, China is going to pass us off the suicide cliff.
Bit of a red herring.
What?
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
I understand it's an easy go-to dynamic of it, because we're in this geopolitical competition with them in all ways, and like, how could we possibly give them we have this year-long 18-month advantage on them. How could we give up a day of the advantage we have?
Yep.
It's because if we're all dead, our advantage doesn't fucking matter.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So then I probably don't need to ask this question. What's your take on Llama and Meta's open source models for AI?
Meta is such a disaster in AI. My God. I mean, I think Jan LeCun, him on their chief AI scientist, he's like the worst person in AI to me.
Yeah, I don't agree with him often. He's an interesting character, to say the least.
He is an interesting character. He's like, virulently, we're all going to be fine, in the face of like every other known colleague in his field. So sure. To the open sourcing, I think open sourcing is nuts. Like, would you put the plans to an F-16 fighter jet or a nuclear bomb or a B-1 bomber on the internet?
No,
like,
doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And this idea that you're going to have like all this innovation happening below because it's open sourced, when you need to be a massive company with all this money to do the training runs, that doesn't make sense either, right? Like, how do you get this innovation if they can't even get onto the playing field?
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma for sure, and they'll keep doing it, right? I mean, there's nothing currently that can stop open source AI from doing whatever. I mean, you and I can tinker with it right now if we want. So it's right. It ups the risk curve even greater, because some isolated genius can now tinker with it whenever we want, and the chance of someone accidentally creating a new form of ASI is much higher that way. So it's an So go ahead. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
So maybe one more question. what do you think as parents we can do to prevent some of the more dangerous early iterations of AI from? So the example I can think of is a super persuasive virtual reality influencer, let's say on Instagram, right? Who's just an AI chatbot with an attractive AI female. So now my son is, instead of going out dating, he's more interested in chatting with this AI who's, thinks he's awesome and always tells him how great he is and knows everything about him because, she has all his info.
Right.
So
she likes everything he likes. Oh my God.
Yeah. Likes everything he likes, is always horny when he is, and so how do we protect our kids from these kinds of, I don't know if you call it temptations or risks versus actually going out and talking to real humans? Like, how do we keep people interacting on a more normal human level?
Great question. That is like the Wild West of what is to come, right? Like, and our kids are going to be the front line of it because we're going to be like the old people on like Facebook, like, what is this thing they're using? And they're going to be like, no, it's great. Everybody's using it. And like, I don't know what to think about that. I've read that, like, in your chat group with your friends in 2 or 3 years, there's going to be an AI in there who's like cracking jokes. And, if you're talking about the football game on Monday, we'll have like a statistic to throw in there with your buddies or like whatever, like that. We'll all have in our texts another AI that is like, if all your friends are asleep and you woke up in the middle of the night, and you just want to chat with somebody, it's there. And like, sure sounds creepy to me. It's hard. I mean, maybe you have a case of like an elderly person who is very isolated, who has no contact with the world, who gets this AI robot or chat friend or cat or robotic cat or whatever it is, and it makes them feel genuinely better about their personal world. I think that is totally plausible. But I think that the negatives are so overwhelming. Like this is like you talk about like things that would maybe make us stop right now because stuff is so crazy. So like I have read that because of the amount of child pornographic images being generated with fake, with AI, that literally police departments like in Baltimore here, they don't know what is real and what is not. And so they have stopped in many ways chasing child pornographic images on the internet kidding. Because they're flooded with fakes, and there's 20 fakes for every one real one. So all the really bad guys are going to be safe and in this sea of shit. Like, so like just that alone, we're not going to be able to catch like predators on our children on the internet anymore because it's a sea of crap.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
Police departments don't know what to do. They have like departments that have been assigned to this that could either process 1 million photos in a day and try to find like what's real or just like give up. And a lot of them are being like, we'll go do, until the technology fixes this, we're not going to fix this. So I don't know.
Well, and that's like, so it's funny, of course, using AI to suss out AI images is getting increasingly effective. So there's a lot of tools that can tell you this is probably AI generated. And so that may be a tool that police departments can use to say, okay, but even, I mean, if you're out generating fake pornographic images of children, that should be illegal too, right? So I feel like any reason that you possess anything that looks like that is a reason that you shouldn't be doing that, so.
Although it's really not illegal. Like I was listening to a New York Times Daily podcast, not illegal. New York Times Daily podcast this week about boys in middle school who made sexual images of their classmates, 12 and 13-year-old girls, that the boys in the class went and put naked bodies on their faces and then sent them around the classroom. And the school administration's perspective was this is, it's going to get crazy out there. We can't really do that much about this. We'll suspend him for a day.
Wow. Yeah, that's not okay at all. It's 15, 20 years ago in Boston, there was somebody who was taking photos. They were upskirting, right? Where they were taking images of women against their consent and then posting it online. Yep. And he didn't go to jail for it because there was no law against that. So they made a law and they retroactively, I think, were able to get him, that kind of thing. But when something is so new that there's no law to stop it, there's a window where it's the Wild West and you can kind of do whatever you want. So, it's awful to hear that. We talk to your local congressman and get that law on the books, no fake AI, awful.
It's, I mean, in some ways, I feel a little hope in that stuff. And like, these are going to be crises in real communities with real people very soon who are going to be, crying out against AI. And like, I feel like, it's like a pandemic. Like we all laughed at pandemic and like, what is a pandemic? Ha ha ha. Like, I mean, I don't, maybe you didn't laugh at it. You're in medicine, but like the regular people were just sort of like, pandemic is something you hear on the news. It's a nuclear war is probably more likely than a pandemic. And then boom, everybody's like, you can't leave your house. And like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. So hopefully this stuff will wake us up, some smaller dangers like that will get people more interested in AI safety. And that there is some hope in that, right? If 90% of Americans don't support reckless AI speed, then at some point popular opinion does matter and we can get some of these guardrails put on. So yeah, absolutely. I think, every person that listens to this and gets the idea that this is an important issue, we can get there and make a difference.
Yeah. All right. So I always like to end on something hopeful.
Yeah,
Let's
please
keep our kids in mind. What makes you hopeful as you think about your kids' future and all this stuff?
I think the world is going to be so exciting for my son, and I cannot wait to see it through his eyes. I think that school is going to be better. I think that medicine is going to be better. I think we're going to make some incredible strides. I think there's going to be less disease, less poverty, less war, and that's going to give humanity the potential to be better than we have been in the past. And so I have a lot of hope that his generation is going to go through some incredible changes that are really going to be special. So that's where my hope comes from.
I love it. I feel that hope. So my son is like I said, going to college, and he's a really smart kid, and he wants to go into sort of the union of public policy and physics and science around this stuff, like helping explain science to politicians.
Wow. What an important, I love that. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
And kind of around this stuff. And so like, as I think about it, I really just hope he has fucking time. He's 18. I hope he can be 25 and 30 and 35 working on these issues, and that we don't, have very bad things happen by ourselves, cause these things to happen to ourselves before we even have a chance to address them. That's my fear.
Agreed.
But I need to end in hope. So I'm going to have to somehow pull this back around to hope.
I want to play with my grandkids. And I think when I do it, I think I'm going to be healthier than, my great-grandfather was potentially. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to have incredible lives. And so that's the hope. There's that old Chinese curse, right? May you live in interesting times. That's not a happy thing, right? That's that's a curse. So it is going to be interesting for our children no matter what. And I hope it's a good, interesting, and not a bad one.
They do say, Elon Musk says that his PDUM is like 30%. And he says he used to stay up at night in 2016 and 2017, not sleeping over this. And then he realized that this is the most interesting time to be alive. So whatever happens is worth it.
There you go. It's going to be great.
Hey, I hope so. I truly, truly hope so. Dustin, thank you so much for your time, man. Happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you. And you as well. I hope we can continue to chat, and I really enjoyed this.
Absolutely. Me too. That would be great. I mean it. Being called dad, hearing that word come from my kids' mouths directed at me always hits me deeply, even to this day, even in casual conversation. The title dad is earned. Anyone can be a father. Not everyone acts like a dad. Awakening the dads of the world to the most urgent threat to our kids is a huge part of this mission that I am on here. If you're still watching or listening, thank you very much. You are a critical part of our For Humanity community. I know you want to see this show grow, this community grow, and this word spread. So if you can, please donate whatever you can to help these videos reach new people. Okay, last of all, our celebration of life. I have a video for you sent in by a viewer, and I absolutely love it. I love the island of Jamaica, the people, the culture, the food, the music. It is all just magic. So what I have for you here is a new artist. It is Bob Marley's grandson, YG Marley, performing with his mother, the incredible Lauryn Hill.
The #1 record stream right now across the world. YG Martin. 1 million streets, y'all. Make some noise. Yo!
These roads of flames are catching on fire.
Sing!
Showed you I loved you, you called me a liar. Oh no, 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 no. Baby, tell me where you go, go, go. I've been feeling for your love so long.
So long.
We can praise God in the moonlight. Baby, if you would take that.
Let's do right. Too long.
And I'm hoping that you
Sing my song, come on.
I've been on this road for way too long.
Too long.
I've been hoping that we all get along.
Let's go.
These roads of flames are catching on fire.
Sing.
Showed you I loved you, you called me a liar.
Let's go.
Oh no, 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 no. Baby, tell me where you go,
Where you going?
I've been feeling for you love so long.
So long.
We can praise God in the moonlight. Baby, if you with me, let's do right.
Too right.
We've gone too long.
Too long.
I'm hoping that you sing my.
Wow. Performing with your mom, especially if she was a legend like the incredible Lauryn Hill, would be an amazing life moment. Wow. All right, my friends, that is all for this week. Remember, AI risk is not someone else's problem. It is yours and it is mine. Quoting Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. For Humanity, I'm John Sherman. I'll see you right back here next week.